Yes, hello everyone. So my title of my speech is How Efficient Markets Support Operational Efficiency, and I can already say who is the murderer, that I try to convince you that the markets are the best friends of the control rooms. And I start from the roles of the TSOs and the market, and this is how I understand it. My pictures will be very simple at the CEO level, so you don't see any complex figures or equations or abbreviations or whatever. So the basis for the functioning electricity system and the market is the grid, and that is what I call the hardware. And then also that what we are looking at all the time is that it's the grid that enables the better competition, larger markets, better integration of the renewables, and so forth. In TSO companies, we call this is our asset, and this is our asset base. And then combined with something that is then able to run the system, we have chosen in Europe to use the market as the software and the operating system. There are other alternatives like central dispatch. You remember, some of you, like me, remember the good old days with central dispatch. And especially when we talk about these operational issues, then I talk about day-ahead market, intraday market, and the balancing market. So the day before, actually, supply and demand meet in the market, and the Euphemia algorithm calculates as the way that the whole Europe will be balanced. Fine. But then there are some uncertainties which are increasing, so we have to fine-tune it, and this is what we do in the intraday market. And again, we have the XBIT that solves the problem. It's using the power plants in the most optimal way. It's using the grid in the most optimal way. And this is the most optimal way to get the balance of supply and demand in Europe. And then there is sort of the noise part, which we then do in the balancing market, and that is coming. We also will be developing the platforms for the balancing market, and this is actually what we are then supposed to do as TSOs. We have already seen that what is important is that the market is matched with physics. Otherwise, the control room has a problem every day, and many control rooms see this problem all the time. Physics means generation, consumption, and the grid. And also that if we want the software to work in the most optimal way, we have to allow it to work cross-border, and this was actually one of the issues of the panel. Something that Brussels cannot change is here. No network code for this physical law. So this is what we try to achieve. And this is what also Joachim was referring when he said that they don't have the responsibility of this security of supply. If there's not enough generation, we reduce the demand. Not everybody gets electricity, but the system is running and the engineers are happy, not the politicians. So this is what we aim with the market. And this is sort of what I said, that the market is the best friend of the control room, that it balances the supply and demand in the most optimal way. Think about the old days when all the countries were sort of vertically integrated, had vertically integrated power producers that owned the grid. How did we do the cross-border things? I mean, that was ad hoc. Now there's an optimization algorithm, and it's easy to say that this is the most efficient way of balancing supply and demand in the whole of Europe. And there's no central machine, no Brussels control room that is doing it. It's fully decentralized, very efficient, very robust. And also from our point of view, we just give the transmission capacity to the market and somebody is using it in the most optimal way. We don't have to say that use it this and this and this amount. It's the invisible hand. And also, we don't own the resources in the market. We don't own the own generation, and it's not our demand. And this market sort of creates incentives to make right investments in the generation. When the generators see the price development, they invest so that the market also in the future will balance in the right way. So investments and innovations also come via the market, and they are the resources that help us to balance better in the future. The trends of the future in the market are that we try to make the market bigger. And one of the reasons, of course, is better competition. In national markets, you don't see much competition. When we open cross-border, it's better. And the larger the market, the better the competition. And then it's the consumers that thank. So very good. Also, in order to integrate more renewable electricity, we need a larger electricity system and a larger market. So that is the trend where we are going. And that's why the market must be allowed to work cross-border, easy. Also decentralized, and in all countries it will be more decentralized. That's the technological development. A lot of generation will be decentralized. But also we want to get all the flexibility on board to balance the system. So we go even into the households to find flexibility from the demand. So these are the two trends. And TSOs have to understand both of these trends. We work with larger markets in ENTSO-E. This decentralized is pretty much local. We work with our local DSOs. And also understanding how we can attract these decentralized resources to balance the system. That is something very new to the TSOs. We don't know that part very well. And this is a learning process. Also flexibility. People talk about flexibility markets, but it's the same thing. It's the same market. When we balance at the system level, you don't need anything extra. What do you need is that this market creates incentives to participate. Incentives to participate from demand side, incentives to develop your generation assets, incentives to use your storage in the most optimal way. But it's actually the same market, no difference. What we can do, and we have been doing a lot in Fingrid, is we have had pilots on how to lower the entry barrier of the new players to participate in the balancing. And that's especially on the demand side. 70% of our disturbance reserves is greenhouses. So flexibility from that part. And this is what we have to attract. How do we get all the resources to balance the system? So that is very interesting, and at least me, this is very, very new when working in the TSO world. New players we meet all the time who are not experts in the electricity market or electricity system. But again, it's the same market that is running. So it's the market players who provide us the resources, and we have to serve them in that sense in the best possible way. Providing them the access to the market, both from generation, demand, storage. So develop the market into that direction. Provide them with the transparency, which we can improve and can improve a lot. And I forecast that we are going to see more and more real-time prices where the market players act. We are going to develop these 15-minute markets and gate closure times approaching zero. And then we are moving fast. Also, when I meet the customers, what they appreciate is consistency. Nobody is wanting certainty. There will be uncertainty all the time with weather forecast, whatever, but consistency. If you promise something, keep your promises. In terms of grid development, whatever, in terms of developing the rules, in terms of developing your systems. The customers don't like surprises. If we can avoid them, that's good. The role, actually, the societies have given to the TSOs is huge. We are the ones that are supposed to make the decisions on behalf of the societies on balancing security and markets, the efficiency. And that's why it's very understandable that the politicians, commission, regulators are watching us. I mean, it's our control rooms who make the judgment, because there is always a conflict of interest between security and efficiency, always. It's a multi-criteria decision-making problem. So who makes the judgment what is more important than the other? If you just optimize one part, you might sacrifice the other one. So this is our job to do, and that's why good regulation, not too complex, is needed, and I think we already had that discussion. Also, as I see that with this sort of more and more real-time system operation and markets converge very fast, and I don't know whether they have already done so. So you cannot separate system operation from market development. And those TSOs, RSCs that are going to be the best sort of appreciated players are the ones that can combine these processes from the beginning, that can create teams where you have capabilities of system operation and markets all the time. So break the silos and take on board even the IT guys from the beginning. So this is the job. And also when we develop the market rules, listen to the stakeholders and customers, because they have different needs, and that is developing all the time, because there will be sort of new technological solutions that want to enter the market. The final balancing of supply and demand, of course, is our responsibility and will be so. And of course, in the future, I think that we will see more and more computers in the control rooms, and people are just following and intervening in exceptional cases. There's so much data, and it's going to be so much real time that this is, I think, the vision of the TSOs, that this is how it's going to be in the future. And then it's the RSC, our regional helicopters, which help us to see a bigger picture than we see from the national control rooms and planning organization. So that regional view is extremely important when you do the transmission capacity calculation issues and so forth. And also the RCCs will have to do the same balancing, which is more important, market efficiency or reliability, security. And I hope that we are going to use the same parameters, because you always have to balance. And if there is a conflict of interest in some region, then we get instructions from the RSCs that we would not like to obey, perhaps. And that conflict shouldn't be there, so it has to be sort of agreed. So if you think about the KPIs of an RSC company, it should be at least two. One is how much contribution is the RSC giving to the security of that region. Number two, how much efficiency is the RSC creating to the markets, social welfare. And these are the ones that we should follow for each of the RSCs, and then we are doing a good job. So my conclusion is that efficient markets indeed support operational security, and they are a good friend of the TSOs, although they are not directly in our processes, which pretty much also run by the power exchanges and that good cooperation. We get the resources for the balancing. The market is operating the supply and demand in the most efficient way, also utilizing the decentralized resources. Of course, if there are congestions in the DSO grid, that's another thing. Then there is a competition who gets the flexibility. But if not, then we can use the same invisible hand over the system. And then the most efficient way of using the grid that we provide to the market with the help of RSCs. And then my message to the RSC, you must recognize your central role as a market facilitator as well. Because at least in TSO meetings, it's mostly related to system operation. I don't hear much discussion in ENTSO-E market group about the RSC that much as it is in the operations group. So that is, I think that we can improve that. Good, and that's the message, and I thank you for your interest.
So as far as I understand, it's time for the closing remarks. So as representing ENTSO-E here, I would like to first thank you, Jens, and all your team for having organized this conference. We did it very successfully together, and I think, Louise, you were very helpful in organizing this agenda. Thank you to all of you to have joined and come today in Copenhagen. I hope you learn as much as I did myself. It's good to get out of our Brussels office and learn the real life, and that was really the case. And I learned mostly one thing is moving from expert to data related decisions. And the second one, which is transparency, I think that's what we wanted to convey into that conference. And I hope you show that transparency, which we try to add in every panel today. So once again, thank you to everyone, and I will give the final word to Jens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next year, just for your information, we are looking forward to go to the Baltic area for the next RSC conference. So that's where we're heading next year. But as we're looking there, I take just a few minutes to remind you of some key takeaways from the conference today. And one of them, I think, is that we must remember that we are still in the beginning, or at least far from halfway, in the most dramatic change of our common system. I think we are on a long journey, and this will be a common journey for which we know the final destination, which is the fully renewable power system, but we do not know the route to this destination. To find and drive this route, that will require significantly different type of skills, vehicles, and traffic rules than the ones that we have been using in the past. We have heard that today. The journey will also involve every stakeholder that are working in, interested in, or just a user of our common power system. It cannot be managed inside the industry as it could in the past. And the journey will require significant innovation, be very challenging and demanding, and even tough at times. But I don't think we have any choice, because we have all heard we have no planet B. Also, another thing that I like to raise is that the journey will force us to compromise on the perfect solutions. I like to quote Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, who is stating, "Done is better than perfect," because time is short. But the journey need not to be perfect to be successful. And I think this conference illustrated that though it requires very close cooperation and collaboration across borders, across disciplines, and across stakeholders to succeed. So let me just see whether I can do next. Which one do I put here? There. That was the one we looked forward to. And then the next one, I would also like this one. Because another thing that has been visualized today in a lot of our presentation is that to succeed, we need to act locally, coordinate regionally, and think European. So that's going to be my last statement. And then on behalf of the Nordic RSC, I'd like to thank you all for the sharing of knowledge, for the good panel discussions, for active participation in the breakout sessions, and generally for making this conference an inspiring and very thought-provoking experience. So thank you for your active participation, everybody today. And because a conference like this does not grow out of nothing. There has been a very good cooperation amongst many. However, there is one individual who has worked intensively for many months with preparation of agenda, engagement with speakers and facilitators, writing guidelines to all the sessions, and cared for the planning of all detail. Thank you very much, Louise. You have done a tremendous job for this conference. Thank you. So, finally, I'd like to invite you to a small network reception in the lobby area outside. And after that, I wish you all a safe journey and travel back home. Thank you for today.